Lucy Luck, and I'm so glad that you are here. Today, we're in the world of Skyrim, and I'm going to read you some dark bedtime stories in this cozy little cottage of mine. This cottage is called Atelier Claire, and is a mod developed by Yuki233515 for Skyrim on PlayStation. Now, the story behind this home goes that an old wreath maker went back to her hometown of Cyrodiil and has entrusted us with the home of her precious memories. The house is absolutely charming, and the kitchen is by far my favorite room. It has a cozy fireplace and is filled with beautiful treats, potted plants, and dried flowers. Now, upstairs is where the lady of the house used to make her wreaths, and we have a nice alchemy station, a quaint little bedroom, and here is the library. In this bookcase, I have just about every book in the game, if not all of them, and as you can see, there are just so many. As much as I would like to read them all for you, I've chosen 3 of the most beloved stories from the Skyrim community. Let's go read them in the kitchen so we can enjoy the nice, crackling fire. Now, I must preface that although these stories are beautiful and incredibly well written, there is a degree of morbidity to them, so do be prepared for a more gothic coziness this evening. But let's begin with a tale called Breathing Water by Halaelmerm. He walked through the dry, crowded streets of Balfell, glad to be among so many strangers. In the warps of Vivek, he had no such anonymity. They knew him to be a smuggler, but here he could be anyone. A lower-class peddler, perhaps, a student even. Some people even pushed against him as he walked past, as if to say, "We would not dream of being so rude as to acknowledge that you don't belong here." Seren Relis was not in any of the taverns, but he knew she was somewhere, perhaps behind a tenement window or poking around in a dunghill for an exotic ingredient for some spell or another. He knew little of the ways of sorceresses, but that they always seemed to be doing something eccentric. Because of this prejudice, he nearly passed by the old Dunmer woman having a drink from a well. It was too prosaic, but he knew from the look of her that she was Seren Relis, the great sorceress. "I have gold for you," he said to her back, "if you will teach me the secret of breathing water." She turned around, a wide, wet grin stretched across her weathered features. "I ain't breathing it, boy. I'm just having a drink." "Don't mock me," he said, stiffly. "Either you're Seren Relis, and you will teach me the spell of breathing water, or you aren't. Those are the only possibilities. If you're going to learn to breathe water, you're going to have to learn there are more possibilities than that, boy. The school of alteration is all about possibilities, changing patterns, making things be what they could be. Maybe I ain't Seren Relis, but I can teach you how to breathe water." She wiped her mouth dry. "Or maybe I am Seren Relis, and I won't. Or maybe even I can teach you to breathe water, but you can't learn." "I'll learn," he said simply. don't you just buy yourself a spell of water breathing or a potion over the Mages Guild? She asked. That's how it's generally done. They're not powerful enough, he said. I need to be underwater for a long time. I'm willing to pay whatever you ask, but I don't want any questions. I was told you could teach me. What's your name, boy? That's a question, he replied. His name was Therian Winloth, but in Vivek they called him the Toll Man. His job, such as it was collecting a percentage of the loot from the smugglers when they came into harbor to bring to his boss in the Kimona Tong. Of the value of that percentage, he earned another percentage. In the end, it was very small indeed. He had scarcely any gold of his own, and what he had, he gave to Seren Relis. The lessons began that very day. The sorceress brought her pupil, who she simply called Boy, out to a low sandbank along the sea. I will teach you a powerful spell for breathing water, she said, but you must become a master of it. As with all spells and all skills, the more you practice, the better you get. Even that ain't enough. To achieve true mastery, you must understand what it is you're doing. It ain't simply enough to perform a perfect thrust of a blade. You must also know what you are doing and why. That's common sense, said Therian. Yes, it is, said Seren, closing her eyes. But the spells of alteration are all about uncommon sense, the infinite possibilities, breaking the sky, swallowing space, dancing with time, setting ice on fire, believing that the unreal may become real. You must learn the rules of the cosmos and then break them. That sounds very difficult, replied Therian, trying to keep a straight face. Seren pointed to the small silverfish darting along the water's edge. They don't find it so. They breathe water just fine. But that's not magic. What I'm saying to you, boy, is that it is. For several weeks, Seren drilled her student, and the more he understood about what he was doing, and the more he practiced, the longer he could breathe underwater. When he found that he could cast the spell for as long as he needed, he thanked the sorceress and bade her farewell. There's one last lesson I have to teach you, she said. You must learn that desire's not enough. The world will end your spell, no matter how good you are, and no matter how much you want it. That's a lesson I'm happy not to learn, he said, and left at once for the short journey back to Vivek. The wharfs were much the same, with all of the same smells, the same sounds, and the same characters. His boss had found a new tollman, he learned from his mates. They were still looking out for the smuggler ship, Merodrung, but they had given up hope of ever seeing it. Therian knew they would not. He had seen it sink from the wharf a long time ago. On a moonless night, he cast his spell and dove into the thrashing purple waves. He kept his mind on the world of possibilities, that books could sing, that green was blue, that water was air, that every stroke and kick brought him closer to a sunken ship filled with treasure. He felt magicka surge all around him, and he pushed his way deeper down. Ahead he saw a ghostly shadow of the Morodrung, its mast billowing in a wind of deep water currents. He also felt his spell begin to fade. He could break reality long enough to breathe water all the way back up to the surface, but not long enough to reach the ship. The next night, he dove again, and this time the spell was stronger. He could see the vessel in detail, clouded over and dusted in sediment. The wound in its hull where it had struck the reef, a glint of gold beckoning from within. But still he felt reality closing in, and he had to surface. The third night, he made it into the steerage, past the bloated corpses of the sailors, nibbled and picked apart by fish, their glassy eyes bulging, their mouths stretched open. Had they only known the spell, he thought briefly, but his mind was more occupied by the gold scattered along the floor, the boxes that contained them shattered. He considered scooping as much as he could carry into his pockets, but a sturdy iron box seemed to bespeak more treasures. On the wall was a row of keys. He took each down and tried it on the locked box, but none opened it. One key, however, was missing. Thalion looked around the room. Where could it be? His eyes went to the corpse of one of the sailors, floating in a dance of death, not far from the box, his hands tightly clutching something. It was a key. When the ship had begun to sink, this sailor had evidently gone for the iron box. Whatever was in it had to be very valuable. Thalion took the sailor's key and opened the box. It was filled with broken glass. He rummaged around until he felt something solid and pulled out 2 flasks of some kind of wine. He smiled as he considered the foolishness of the poor alcoholic. This was what was important to the sailor out of all the treasure in the Morodrung. Then suddenly, Thalion Winloth felt reality. He had not been paying attention to the grim, tireless advance of the world on his spell. It was fading away, his ability to breathe water. There was no time to surface. There was no time to do anything. As he sucked in, his lungs filled with cold, briny water. A few days later, the smugglers working on the wharf came upon the drowned body of the former tollman. Finding a body in the water in Vivek was not in itself noteworthy, but the subject that they discussed over many bottles of Flynn was how did it happen that he drowned with 2 potions of water breathing in his hands. Now, you lovers of poetry might enjoy this one. This next book is a cautionary tale written as a unique children's poem with an ABBCCA rhyme scheme. So what this means is, within 6 lines of poetry, the first line rhymes with the 6th, the second line rhymes with the 3rd, and the 4th line rhymes with the 5th. It's incredibly strange, but wonderfully written. This is Mannimarco, King of Worms by Horicles. O sacred isle, Artaeum, where rosy light infuses air. Over towers and through flowers, gentle breezes flow, softly sloping, green-kissed foam below. Always springtide afternoon, housed within its border, this mystic mist-protected home of the Sigic order. Those counselors of kings, cautious, wise, and fair. 10 years and 30 since the mighty Ramens fell. 2 brilliant students studied within the Sigic's fold. One's heart was light and warm, the other dark and cold. The matter-latter Mannimarco whirled in a deathly dance, his soul in bones and worms, the way of the necromance. Entrapping and enslaving souls, he cast a wicked spell. The former Galerion had magic bold and bright as day. He confronted Mannimarco beneath grey Sapora Tower, saying your wicked mysticism is no way to wield your power. Bringing horror to the spirit world, your studies must cease. Mannimarco scoffed, hating well the ways of life and peace, and returned to his dark artistry, his paints, death, and decay. O sacred isle, Artaeum, how slow to perceive the threat. When the ghastly truth revealed how weak the punishment, the ghoulish Mannimarco from the Isle of the Wise was sent. To the mainland dawn's beauty, more death and souls to reap. You have found a wolf and sent the beast to flocks of sheep. Galerion told his masters a terror on Tamriel has set. Speak no more of him, the sage cloaks of grey did say. 'Twas not the first time Galerion thought his masters callous, unconcerned for men and myrrh, aloof in their island palace. 'Twas not the first time Galerion thought 'twas time to build a new order to bring true magic to all, a mighty mages guild. But 'twas the time he left at last fair Artaeum's azure bay. Oh, but sung we have for Venice Galerion many times before. How cast he off the Sigic's chains, bringing magic to the land. Throughout the years he saw the touch of Mannimarco's hand. Through Tamriel's deserts, forests, towns, mountains, and seas, the dark grip stretching out, growing like some dread disease. By his dark necromancers, collecting cursed artifacts of yore, they brought to him these tools, mad wizards and witches, and brought blood-tainted herbs and oils to his cave of sin. Sweet akaviri poison, dust from saints, sheaves of human skin, toadstools, roots, and much more cluttered his alchemical shelf. Like a spider in his web, he sucked all their power into himself. Mannimarco, Worm King, world's first of the undying liches. Corruption on corruption, till the rot sunk to his very core. Though he kept the name Mannimarco, his body and his mind were but a living, moving corpse, as he left humanity behind. The blood in his veins became instead a poison acid stew. His power and his life increased as his fell collection grew. Mightiest were these artifacts, long cursed since days of yore. They say Galerion left the guild, calling it a morass, but untruth is a powerful stream polluting the river of time. Galerion beheld Mannimarco's rise through powers sublime. To his mages and lamp knights, before my last breath, face I must the tyranny of worms, and kill at last on death. He led them north to cursed lands, to a mountain pass. Oh, those who survived the battle say, its like was never seen, armored with magica, armed with ensorcelled sword and axe. Galerian cried, echoing, Worm King, surrender your artifacts, and their power to me, and you shall live, as befits the dead. A hollow laugh answered, you die first, Mannimarco said. The mage army then clashed with the unholy force obscene. Imagine waves of fire and frost, the mountain shivers. Picture lightning arching forth, crackling in a dragon's sigh, like leaves and battle mages fly to rain down from the sky. At the necromancer's call, corpses burst from the earth to fight, to be shattered into nothingness with the flood of holy light. A maelstrom of energy unleashed, blood cascades in rivers. Like a thunderburst in blue skies or a lion's sudden roar, like sharp razors tearing over delicate embroidered lace, so at a touch did Galerian shake the mountain to its base. The deadly horde fell fatally, but heeding their dying cries, from the depths the thing they called Worm King did rise. Nirn itself did scream in the mages and necromance's war. His eyes burning dark fire, he opened his toothless maw, vomiting darkness with each exhalation of his breath, all sucking in the fetid air, felt the icy touch of death. In the skies above the mountain, darkness overcame pale. Then Mannimarco, Worm King, felt his dismal powers fail. The artifacts of death pulled from his putrid skeletal claw. 1,000 good and evil perished then, history confirms. Among, alas, Vanus Galerian, he who showed the way, it seemed once that Mannimarco had truly died that day. Scattered seemed the necromancers, wicked, ghastly fools. Back to the Mages Guild, victors kept the accursed tools of him living still in undeath, Mannimarco, King of Worms. Children, listen as the shadows cross your sleeping hutch, and the village sleeps away, streets emptied of the crowds, and the moons do balefully glare through the nightly clouds. In the graveyards people rest, we hope, in eternal sleep. Listen, and you'll hear the whispered tap of the footsteps creep. Then pray you'll never feel the Worm King's awful touch. What a fitting book for children. Well, let's do another fun one. This tale is called Immortal Blood by Anonymous. The moons and stars were hidden from sight, making that particular quiet night especially dark. The town guard had to carry torches to make their rounds, but the man who came to call at my chapel carried no light with him. I came to learn that Movarth Pekin could see in the dark almost as well as the light, an excellent talent considering his interests were exclusively nocturnal. One of my acolytes brought him to me, and from the look of him, I at first thought he was in need of healing. He was pale to the point of opalescence, with a face that looked like it had once been very handsome before some unspeakable suffering. The dark circles under his eyes bespoke exhaustion, but the eyes themselves were alert, intense, and almost insane. He quickly dismissed my notion that he himself was ill, though he did want to discuss a specific disease. Vampirism, he said, and then paused at my quizzical look. I was told that you were someone I should seek out for help understanding it. Who told you that? I asked with a smile. Desena Gray. I immediately remembered her, a brave, beautiful knight who had needed my assistance separating fact from fiction on the subject of the vampire. It had been 2 years, and I had never heard whether my advice had proven effective. You've spoken to her? How is her ladyship? I asked. Dead, Movarth replied coldly. And then, responding to my shock, he added to perhaps soften the blow. She said your advice was invaluable, at least for the one vampire. When last I talked to her, she was tracking another. It killed her. Then the advice I gave her was not enough, I sighed. Why do you think it would be enough for you? I was a teacher once myself, years ago, he said. Not in a university, a trainer in the Fighters Guild. But I know that if a student doesn't ask the right questions, the teacher cannot be responsible for his failure. I intend to ask you the right questions. And that he did. For hours he asked questions, and I answered what I could, but he never volunteered any information about himself. He never smiled. He only studied me with those intense eyes of his, committing every word I said to memory. Finally, I turned the questioning around. You said you were a trainer at the Fighters Guild. Are you on an assignment for them? No, he said curtly. And finally I could detect some weariness in those feverish eyes of his. I would like to continue this tomorrow if I could. I needed to get some sleep and absorb this. You sleep during the day, I smiled. To my surprise, he returned the smile, though it was more of a grimace. When tracking your prey, you adapt their habits. The next day, he did return with more questions. These ones very specific. He wanted to know about the vampires of eastern Skyrim. I told him about the most powerful tribe, the Valgahar clan, paranoid and cruel, whose very breath could freeze their victims' blood in the veins. I explained to him how they lived beneath the ice of remote and haunted lakes, never venturing into the world of men except to feed. Movarth Bakeen listened carefully and asked more questions into the night, until at last he was ready to leave. I will not see you for a few days, he said, but I will return and tell you how helpful your information has been. True to his word, the man returned to my chapel shortly after midnight 4 days later. There was a fresh scar on his cheek, but he was smiling that grim but satisfied smile of his. Your advice helped me very much, he said, but you should know that the Valgahar have an additional ability you didn't mention. They can reach through the ice of their lakes without breaking it. It was quite a nasty surprise, being grabbed from below without any warning. How remarkable, I said with a laugh, and terrifying. You're lucky you survived. I don't believe in luck. I believe in knowledge and training. Your information helped me, and my skill at melee combat sealed the bloodsucker's fate. I've never believed in weaponry of any kind. Too many unknowns. Even the best swordsmith has created a flawed blade. But you know what your body is capable of. I know I can land 1,000 blows without losing my balance, provided I get the first strike. The first strike, I murmured. So you must never be surprised. That is why I came to you, said Movarth. You know more than anyone alive about these monsters, and all their accursed varieties across the land. Now you must tell me about the vampires of northern Valenwood. I did as he asked, and once again his questions taxed my knowledge. There were many tribes to cover. The Bonsamo, who were indistinguishable from Bosmer except when seen by candlelight. The Kirlith, who could disintegrate into mist. The Yekef, who swallowed men whole. The dread Talboth, who preyed on children, eventually taking their place in the family, waiting patiently for years before murdering them all in their unnatural hunger. Once again, he bade me farewell, promising to return in a few weeks, and once again he returned, as he said, just after midnight. This time, Movarth had no fresh scars, but he again had new information. You are wrong about the Kirlith being unable to vaporize when pushed underwater, he said, patting my shoulder fondly. Fortunately, they cannot travel far in their mist form, and I was able to track it down. It must have surprised it fearfully. Your field knowledge is becoming impressive, I said. I should have had an acolyte like you decades ago. Now tell me, he said, of the vampires of Cyrodiil. I told him what I could. There was but one tribe in Cyrodiil, a powerful clan who had ousted all other competitors, much like the Imperials themselves had done. Their true name was unknown, lost in history, but they were experts at concealment. If they kept themselves well fed, they were indistinguishable from living persons. They were cultured, more civilized than the vampires of the provinces, preferring to feed on victims while they were asleep, unaware. They will be difficult to surprise, Movarth frowned. But I will seek one out and tell you what I learn, and then you will tell me of the vampires of High Rock, and Hammerfell, and Elsewhere, and Blackmarsh, and Morrowind, and the Somerset Isles, yes? I nodded, knowing then that this was a man on an eternal quest. He wouldn't be satisfied with but the barest hint of how things were. He needed to know it all. He did not return for a month, and on the night that he did, I could see his frustration and despair, though there were no lights burning in my chapel. I failed, he said, as I lit a candle. You were right. I could not find a single one. I brought the light up to my face and smiled. He was surprised, even stunned by the pallor of my flesh, the dark hunger in my ageless eyes, and the teeth. Oh yes, I think the teeth definitely surprised the man who could not afford to be surprised. I haven't fed in 72 hours, I explained, as I fell on him. He did not land the first blow, or the last. Well, darlings, I hope you've enjoyed some of the stories from Skyrim this evening. Which one was your favorite? If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe, and as always, comment below. I'd love to hear from you. If you would like more bedtime bedtime stories, let me know. I would be happy to read more for you. But until then, sweet dreams, and I look forward to seeing you next